how we behave in the anticipation of criticism can be equally as bad or even worse than the criticism itself. And you cannot win. Like you said, you're going to get criticized anyway, whether you do or don't, do something. And so in that, there's so much freedom. Like if you can understand that, truly believe it, I'm talking about understand that and believe it to your core that no matter what you do, you will never escape criticism, then it's so freeing because you're like, well, in that scenario, what am I afraid of? And what do I want to do?
Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Dr. Becc.
And I am Kristeen Barker, and this is Am I Doing It Wrong? A podcast for doctors by doctors. Dr. Becc is a mindset coach and medical doctor who specialises in liberating driven professional women from the limitations of perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and people pleasing. She's basically the cheat code for getting out of your own way, showing up authentically, and living a life you're proud of.
And Kristeen is a medical educator and nephrologist who creates resources for doctors in training that I truly think are an unfair advantage. She makes complex topics super simple and takes the pain and uncertainty out of passing your medical exams. Kristeen and I connected a few years ago via our online platforms, and over the years we've discussed countless highs, lows, and in-betweens of doctor life. And in doing so, we've experienced firsthand the power of vulnerable conversations to show us where we're getting in our own way and underestimating our capacity.
So we want you to be part of the conversation and experience these same results. Every week on the pod, we'll be bringing you conversations which shine light in dark places, normalise the doctor journey, ease unnecessary suffering, and give you actionable steps to thrive in all facets of your life. So grab a cuppa and get cozy for this week's episode of Am I Doing It Wrong? The podcast for doctors by doctors. Oh, it's so fun. And how are you, Becc?
I am so good. I'm so excited because, guys, Kristeen and I have just been talking about my upcoming group coaching membership. I'm holding my hands here so I don't explode.
Oh, I'm already exploding. So yes, so for when this episode goes live, it is 2 weeks away, right? 2 weeks away. It's so exciting. I am so excited to join. And we have decided to, well, to be honest, Becc has decided and I have decided that I'm coming. So, but there's going to be a party. Hey, off you go. Introduce the party. Hey, it's your party anyway. What am I doing?
Okay, Kristeen, I know you wanted to call this the How Very Dare You party. But I'm not calling it that, okay? I love it too, but I can't put the hand flick in my written text. It's going to be the How Dare You Darling party. Come along, expand your mind out as to what is actually possible for you by taking on these mind management skills that you will learn in Dare Darling, that we will train you up in, not by didactic teaching, not by stringing you through a round of videos and lessons, but by actually using coaching, by taking real life situations from your life and using these as your curriculum, using your life as your curriculum to make changes that not only are you highly motivated to make, but that you've actually got the opportunity and the substance to make changes in immediately. So it's so different from just reading another book, doing another course, and being able to nod your head and memorize and regurgitate how you think you should be and how you're going to change your life. But then a couple of weeks later, your life being no different, right? Coaching is all about implementation. It's about integration, and it makes the work that we do highly personalized. We don't just give you the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. We actually get you into the situation. We analyze the situation. We work out, this is what you need right now. This person over here needs step 2, but you're right here, you need step 7. So let's not dance around in the first 1 to 6 steps. Let's get you working on this block or this opportunity at step 7. That's what coaching does. It gets you doing the work in the space that you really need it. So in the How Dare You Darling party, we're going to be helping you paint the vision for what's actually possible for you by joining this membership, because a lot of us are thinking way too small. A lot of us have no idea how amazing our life can be. And actually, Kristeen and I, we've just been talking about this concept of 10 timesing things. You know, we often think of changing our life in small increments. And so we make these goals that are very achievable, very realistic. we go from being a multiple of 1 to a multiple of 2. We double our results. Now, with this How Dare You Darling party, this is a space where we're going to help you see a much bigger picture. We're going to help you see what your life would look like if it was 10 times better, which you right now will have trouble imagining because you're right here in this current reality. You're in this situation. It doesn't seem possible to you right now for your life to be able to be 10 times as good and so dramatically different. We often need other people or external prompts and challenges to help us get into that different mind space. And that's what we're going to be doing for you in this party. So if you dare, come along and have your mind blown with us. Look, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Like if you don't leave the party feeling a little bit like, oh, I'm a bit nervous about this. This is a big change. If you don't leave the party feeling a little bit on fire like that, a little bit razzed up and excited, then we haven't done it right. All right. This is supposed to be an expander. This is supposed to shake you a little bit. This is supposed to change you. And that is what I want to offer you in this How Dare You Darling party. I want to offer you a totally different view of the world. Do you want to come to the party, Kristeen?
I would love to come to the party, and I am so excited. Everything you just said, I feel like I genuinely need it in my life right now. I have been, like when you say, like you talk about this all the time, how you're working with people who are already successful, but they're still ambitious. Like it's like we never get to the place, there's no destination. Once you get to where you wanted to go, there's a new level to hit. And I feel like that is what I'm experiencing right now and what I'm always experiencing. It's just always so relevant to me. And the thought of coming to a place where I can go through that with you in a structured way and kind of almost reset my goals for the next quarter even, or however long it's going to take to reach my goals. I find that so helpful. So I am so excited for this party. Hey, the How Very Dare You. I'm going to still put the very in, it's too fun. So first week of May, and if you do want to come, it is free. Click that link below and sign up, and we would love to see you there. We will I'd be lovely to meet you guys. We're actually noticing today that over half of you are in America, the US. Hello, America. But we were just getting excited about the amount of people that we are interacting with and listening to, but we'd actually love to meet you. So this is the ideal scenario. It's all online, it's on Zoom, and we'll be able to give you the time zones as well when you sign up. So very excited. And I'm really excited for today's episode, which is Who Do You Think You Are? And this was a topic that you brought today, Becc. Tell us a little bit about what inspired this idea.
This Who Do You Think You Are episode was inspired by my clients who are achieving levels of success and recognition and just extraordinary achievements and impact that they couldn't have even anticipated themselves. They are winning awards on awards professionally in their businesses. They're influencing political decisions. They're moving millions and millions and millions of dollars politically into different areas in communities based on their influence and their willingness to stand up and talk about what matters. And having done that for a lot of time in the background too, and building up their own credibility and influence. And what also comes with that, these extraordinary achievements, is criticism. And I know this is something that a lot of us don't want to hear. I think when a lot of us picture achieving our goals or even getting more success than we could ever imagine, we think that we will be we're so obviously being helpful and we have good intentions in our heart. We're trying to do the right thing. How could anybody criticize us for acting this way or towards this mission, let alone with all of the hard work that we've put in to be able to A, receive this recognition, or B, be able to hold this responsibility or power. It's hard to imagine that you could get to the end of your path and that people would still be criticizing you. And in this episode, I want to highlight the fact that it's actually quite the opposite. with more success often comes more criticism, and you only need to look as far as any celebrity or any other person of influence in the scientific community or the medical community as an example to see that they have 1,000 times the level of criticism that you probably do right now if you haven't yet stepped into that leadership role, if you haven't yet stepped into that version of you that wants to be the change maker or that wants to influence your life or your community or your workplace in any way, whether it is just by, adding in a new program or using a different leadership style, whether it's changing a system or protocol, whatever change you might want to make. When you are more successful, when you are more visible, you will be more exposed to criticism. And that is where the name of this episode, "Who do you think you are?" comes from. Because we think that nicely sums up the effect that we see when people get this kind of success. Does this resonate with you, Kristeen?
Oh, it really, really does. I guess there's a few different ways to get there. It might be that you're sticking out for, being different or doing something that's a bit new. It might be that you're such a high achiever, you've won an award, or like you say, you're in a position of influence and power. So there's lots of different ways to sort of get that sort of attention or shine a light on yourself that is going to open you up to criticism. But it feels like for everyone who's listening, we're all on a path towards that in some respect. No matter what it is that you have planned for yourself, you can see how from going from A to B, when you get to B, you'll probably be open to criticism in some way, right? We just cannot avoid it. But I think we do try to avoid it, or we sort of, like you say, you've maybe done something very well intentioned, you've been following your life path, and you sort of arrive somewhere, and the why behind it was so pure and genuine that you're like, why on earth would anyone criticize me? But I think what we'd like to do today is sort of normalize it as a phenomenon. You don't get to not be criticized. People will criticize you. But then also, how do you handle that? How do you stand in your river? How do you be okay with that? So I'm keen to pick your brain on this, Becc. So would you have any, because you're talking about your clients, this comes up for them a lot, and it seems like the more successful they get, the more this comes up. What would your suggestions be for getting ready for that criticism, first of all?
When you're receiving this criticism, we need to look into what's happening in your internal experience that's making that difficult. And we also want to be aware of what's happening in the other person's internal experience. Why? What's driving their criticism towards you? And so to just split this up, when you think about when people say, "Who do you think you are?" It's obvious when you're being different and you're trying to do something new that people will criticize you, because they might have different opinions to you, different opinions about how things should be done, how resources should be used, what changes should be made. But then there's this other situation, as you were saying, where you win an award and you can get criticized. Like, you're just being celebrated. And I just like to zoom in on the fact that you probably have these experiences in your life. I just want you to look into your mind where you've seen somebody achieve an award and the thought has popped up in your mind of, how did they deserve that? Well, why did they deserve that? Even think about, I actually don't know what their musical and the actors awards are, but like the Grammys and the Golden Globes, that's one of them too. Yeah. Somebody will win an award and there'll be this uproar of, they shouldn't have won that because ... This person should have won this because ... right? So people can't even get recognized for winning an award, just for being excellent, without attracting criticism. And that is a very normal phenomenon. And this doesn't happen just because it's the arts in this situation. People can win Nobel Prizes and be criticized because they shouldn't have won the award over this person. And we wouldn't understand that because we're not in the scientific community. However, I have had clients who are in the PhD pathways and scientific communities in very prestigious establishments. And the same kind of dialogue happens in those situations as well. All of this to say, it's a very normal human phenomenon when it comes to awarding people, even just for excellence, to have an opinion that they weren't deserving of that. Ergo, the criticism. So the idea that you could avoid criticism, even when you've just been recognized for being excellent, I'd like us to all accept that as being a fantasy. And then I think it's even more difficult when you're standing out and you've got the who do you think you are phenomenon happening to you because you've chosen to be different, because you've chosen to do something differently, because you've chosen to do something new. I think it's even more difficult because not only can you feel like it's you versus the world when you're out there trying to do something new that other people don't understand or agree with, that they can't see the positive effects of yet. There's also all of the uncertainty on your part too. So when you ask that question of how do we manage this criticism, it definitely depends on the situation that you're in where you're being criticized, because I think it's even more tough when you're over here being criticized for doing something new, because you've got all that uncertainty behind you. You haven't got a proven track record of results ahead of you. You've got to keep pushing forwards in the uncertainty with the criticism. And that's the case for a lot of situations. And then also, I mean, it also can be really difficult when you are criticized for winning an award, just being recognized for being excellent, because very quickly the public can turn on you and these can become very personal attacks, things that are not relevant at all, but it's this phenomenon of people thinking they don't deserve that, this other person or this other group deserves it, or even if they just decide they don't like you and they don't want to see you recognized, and people can tear you down and criticize you from a very personal perspective. So it depends in what position you are in, that is and your personal factors here, and what is attracting that criticism, but then also where the other person is coming from. And this is some of the work that we do in coaching. We focus mainly on ourselves and what's in our control, but sometimes it is very useful to go and try and understand why this other person might be doing what they're doing. It helps us to get out of our own model of the world and our own understanding of, well, I would only say that if this person was actually, evil or hurting people. Some people criticize people for different reasons from what might warrant you criticizing somebody. So I've said a lot here, but is there anything, Kristeen, that you want to add there?
When I think about this, it feels like some of the things we've touched on in previous podcasts as well. It feels like tall poppy syndrome meets imposter syndrome. And not just tall poppy syndrome where people want to cut you down, but also the foundations of tall poppy syndrome where it's like it comes from their sense of self or what's fairness or what's right in the world as well. So it's just like you say, neither is right or wrong. Like I've had lots of situations where we all criticize something, right? Like you have an opinion and therefore you'll be at liberty to criticize something. Now, you might not go and troll someone on the internet or tell them directly, you might keep it to yourself, but we're all making those judgments. And so I think just to make that more emotionally neutral, that it's just something that, that we are doing. But I think that, even when people don't intentionally weaponize it, the way that it would be affecting you is about your own relationship with it. And so I think an important puzzle piece to this is not only what you've said in terms of you know it's coming, and I guess understanding that the other person's position and maybe why it's happening, but also that's kind of not on you. That's kind of their thing. And how do you just be okay with it? Because it can really rock you. I was actually laughing at how, when you were saying that, I was thinking about how I'm very lucky, I think, and maybe I've just got more to go. Maybe there's going to be more of this, but in my audience, I have a lot of doctors, right? So I feel like doctors even if they do want to criticize me for something I'm doing online, they probably don't have a lot of time for that, and that it's not who they are, and they're not trolls, right? But I have been trolled, and when it happens, it's so weird. It's like, so an example I can think of, and I know you've been trolled as well. I'm actually keen to hear about this. An example is I did like a Anca vascularis video. And in the comments, someone was like, "You laugh too much." And I was just like, okay. So how can you be criticized for laughing too much? But then maybe that's fine. Maybe they like serious things and that's fine. Maybe they just shouldn't be in my audience. Totally fine. So things like that don't affect me, but there are things that people could say to me that could upset me. And so there's still work that I need to do to be very much in my river. So I'm curious as to how we do that. Like, how do we, if we are receiving an award or doing something different, we'll probably have that uncertainty within ourselves, regardless. You know, even when you receive an award, you might be thinking, do I deserve this award? Like, why am I getting the award? You might still have a little bit of imposter syndrome, even though you're very deserving of that award. So, do you have any advice that for that part, like just the internal work of that?
Absolutely. This is something that I'm constantly managing. And you've hit the nail on the head. It is imposter syndrome. It's this, and it doesn't sound like it in your head, because to me, it sounds like, especially because we have this medical background and we have, we've all learnt research methods, and we've learnt what is acceptable and valid in the scientific community as doctors. And then, as you're saying, there are also regulatory bodies who end up being these overseeing people who give the tick of like, yes, that's okay, or no, that's not okay. And when, I constantly have this kind of surveillance in my mind and of what I'm doing that comes from that critical and skeptical place that's saying, have you done enough in terms of establishing a scientific basis? Have you done enough in terms of keeping up to date with the scientific basis? And even just with those two questions, I'm overwhelmed with work. I have too much to do, so much to do that would be absolutely paralyzing. See, my work as a coach is with the mind, which is very poorly understood. And this is something that people don't understand, not only about, mindset coaching, neuroscience, psychology, but also medicine in general. We know that we have patients who come to us with the belief that doctors know everything and that the science is all finalized and fact. And if we don't know the exact diagnosis, or we can't pick out the perfect management plan at first, then we're not a very good doctor. And they don't understand that there is an art that comes with medicine, i.e., there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of back and forth between the doctor and the patient as well that we can't quite articulate yet, i.e., we don't have the science for it. We don't even have words for it, let alone data for it. And so for me, I'm always aware that, yes, in some ways, that part of me that is doing the surveillance and that is highly critical of all the things that I could criticize myself for and that everybody else could criticize me for, they're important to be aware of. And if I took that too far, I'd be paralyzed and I'd do nothing. I'd never be able to move on from all the literature before being able to then be able to create anything or do anything or be of service in the world. And so I think that is an important premise of this work on criticism, because, and this is where perfectionism comes in as well. This is the triad of dare darling. It's perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and people pleasing. Who do you think you are? Because if we keep trying to be perfect in this area in order to avoid the criticism, i.e., keep people pleased with us, keep people liking us, then we'll be paralyzed. We won't do anything and we won't please ourselves. We'll be so unhappy with ourselves because our missions will go unmet in life. And so, my clients, as much as they received not only sort of subtle disapproval and hostility with all the different humans and all our different opinions. You know, you'll never please everyone when you're in these positions. But they also had to face a lot of, they had to face some very direct and aggressive and overt hostility. You know, it's in that situation where somebody's being not just quietly disapproving of you, but overtly hostile towards you. It really helps if you can be very aware of what your mission is, what your service is, what your integrity is here, why you're doing what you're doing, why you decide to move forwards, to stand out, to speak up, to change things, even if you don't have all of these answers for all of these criticisms. Because sometimes the answer is just because this is more important than these things over here that I could be criticized for. And also to that point, this is more important, my mission or my integrity is more important versus your opinion of what I've missed, what's not quite right, what I've done wrong. So you alluded to this earlier, that a part of the cure is to be able to stand in your integrity. And what my clients found here as well is how much of an iterative process this is, because they'd never heard these criticisms before. These were new criticisms that their mind hadn't been able to come up with before, but new criticisms that came out of the blue after they'd been elevated to these new, brilliant, amazing positions and in these great new situations. Now, as you elevate and elevate and elevate and get more and more successful, more and more people have opinions and you have more and more perspectives that you need to decide what you think on them. And there's nothing wrong with you if you don't have an answer straight away for their questions, their criticisms, their skepticism. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't have an answer straight away that's in your integrity. This is sometimes your prompt to understand yourself better and understand where you stand better. And if we can recognize that it would be an error to say that because I don't have an answer for you right now means I must be doing something wrong. This must be a legitimate criticism. I must be out of my integrity because you don't know. It doesn't mean you're out of your integrity. It just means you haven't explored this part of you yet. So two sort of things that we've pointed out with criticism today that are hard lessons to learn. One is there's no way to do everything right such that you won't be criticized. People have opinions. We have opinions. We all have opinions. There's no way to stand out and have everyone be happy with you. And then two, expect to be criticized and be asked questions and presented with challenges in that setting that you don't necessarily have your perfect answer for yet, that isn't necessarily super obvious to you, especially if you're early on your journey of rising and rising. And let yourself use that as a prompt to say, what do I actually think about that? Where do I actually stand on that? And then discover that about yourself as a part of your process of rising. You don't need to just talk back to somebody to look strong or smart. Sometimes the stronger and smarter looking thing to do is to say, yeah, I didn't think of that, or I haven't considered that yet. I admit that. I'm going to go and take that under consideration and work out where I stand and what I'm going to do about it, if anything.
Yeah. Oh my God, there's so much in what you just said. So taking that part, what I love is what you're describing. And it's so much, it brings in so many other elements of what I hear you talk about again and again, which is being undefended. You use this term undefended. And I think what you're saying is like when you're met with that criticism, obviously we know it's coming. At some point in your life, it's coming. And then meeting it with, you don't have to defend it. You don't have to even react in the moment. You can like take it to go, like you say. But the other thing that I love, at least trying in this situation, is actually to be curious, like remain curious about the other person's perspective, because what they're saying, you might even agree with on some level. Like you can sort of say, like, build on a bridge towards it. Like, all right, okay, I can see how you arrive there. I can see that your opinion's different from mine, and I can see where you're coming from. And what's also true is this thing that I'm doing, thing that I won, thing that I'm like, both things are actually equally valid. And I think if we can sort of approach it like that, then you perhaps have an interesting conversation. So rather than going, which, to be honest, Kristeen behavior would often be like shutting down and these situations, shut down, squirrel away, have a little fester about whatever's just happened. But the sort of person that I want to be in these situations would be curious, like, oh, tell me more about why you think that, or oh, I can understand your perspective. Yeah, I agree with you on that, but maybe not on this. Like, I think that would be such a more superior way to do it. And it takes that emotion out of it as well for yourself. And then you'll be really proud of how you showed up in that moment because you weren't defending yourself. And then I guess you don't have to carry that baggage around with you for the rest of the day. But there was something else that you said in there, which was when you were talking about that thing about being, a mindset coach, and I like to call you a thought wizard, versus neuroscience, and how, like, if you set yourself the goal of being perfect in neuroscience, and it's an ever-evolving space, and there's even stuff that we don't understand, maybe we'll never understand. And so if you were to let yourself be held back by that expectation, or being worried that people would criticize you because you don't know every single thing about every single brain cell that ever was, right? That would be paralyzing, like you said. And I think another important part of this conversation today is that sort of how we behave in the anticipation of criticism can be equally as bad or even worse than the criticism itself. And you cannot win. Like you said, you're going to get criticized anyway, whether you do or don't do something. And so in that, there's so much freedom. Like if you can understand that, truly believe it, I'm talking about understand that and believe it to your core, that no matter what you do, you will never escape criticism, then it's so freeing, because you're like, well, in that scenario, what am I afraid of? And what do I want to do? What if I just lived my life for me and not for everyone around me? Like you say. So I feel like it's kind of mind-blowing to unlock that concept, and all these brilliant concepts, it's sort of like, it's so obvious when you say it out loud, but if you truly hear it today and you realize that it is actually truth, then if you start living your life from that through that lens, then your life could change completely. You go on a totally different path from where you were going, where you were caring about what everyone thought about you all the time. Yeah, what would you say to that, Beck?
Absolutely. This is why I want you guys to join Dear Darling, because as Kristeen said, the criticism is inevitable. If you want to be successful, it's inevitable. Even if you don't get the criticism until right at the end, when you hit that major level of success where you become really visible, even if you didn't ask for it. But if we just can accept that no matter how perfect we are, no matter how skillful we think we're getting at people pleasing, we're going to get criticized. Then we'd stop wasting all the time with the perfectionism. We'd stop wasting all the time with the people pleasing, and we'd start spending time building our nervous system to be able to adapt to criticism. And that's what we do in Dear Darling. We make it safe for you in places that have never been safe for you before, i.e. being criticized. If criticism feels like a place that you could never, ever feel safe, come to Dear Darling, because I will teach you. We're going to train you by experience as to how you can feel safe while actively being criticized, even in that most hostile situation with somebody like shouting in your face. You can actually feel safe and stable in yourself. And I'm not saying that this is a magic wand and that you'll never feel scared again, or you'll never have your nervous system activated again. But these incremental changes in how safe you feel to take risks, for example, to take a risk to be criticized, to move towards something that you really want to do or you think is really important, but you understand now it will attract criticism. If you can feel 20% more safe in that scenario, that might be enough to make you feel free, liberated enough to take that next step and therefore start living life the way you want. There are things that you don't know you want yet because the fear is so overpowering, because what you think that will involve, how terrifying you think it will be, is so overpowering that you don't even realize that you want that thing, that you'd want to be in that position, that you want to create that change or be that kind of person. Because, you know, public speaking is a great example. So many people believe that they would never want to stand up on a stage and deliver a really important, impactful message, because when they think about standing up on a stage, they just feel terror. But if we can turn down the terror and turn up the desire with coaching, with Dear Darling, then suddenly you might discover, wow, I would love to be on that stage. I would feel so proud of myself if I was able to impact a room of people at once. It's something that you can't do. You can't impact that many people unless you're willing to speak to that many people, connect with that many people. Even take it to networking. If you are so afraid to connect with people on a one-to-one level, if your fear, your terror of that situation, that networking situation is so loud that you can't hear the desire and you never get to the point where you can see what impact that could have for you, then you're living a completely different life to one that you would live without fear. So this is the reason for Dear Darling. This is the point. If we can turn down the fear, then suddenly your desire gets so loud and you start living differently, not by pushing yourself, not by holding yourself accountable, but by genuinely making you feel safe first. And then all of your desires change. This is what a mindset coach is. We change you from your thoughts and emotions. That naturally creates a behavior change, right? Instead of just telling you you're going to do this thing and this thing and this thing, we change you from the inside out.
I can think of so many ways that I'm getting in this scenario that I'm getting in my own way as well. So I feel like this is timely. I need to come to Dear Darling as well. So if that is resonating with you, if you want to become the fullest expression of yourself, become who you're supposed to be, no rules, there are no rules, Becc will definitely get you there. A great way to start is coming to the How Dare You Darling party the first week of May. You can find that link below. So we would love you to see you there. It is absolutely free. And yeah, we can't wait. It's very soon, 2 weeks from now. It's very, very soon. And thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you again next week.
See you guys.
I've been waiting all my life for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing.